Right. Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Margaret Puckett. I'm the Vice President of Land for Tri Point Homes. And I want to take the time this evening to explain the intent of this meeting. The purpose of Tri Point Homes Lakeview Farms Community Meeting is to discuss our proposed development, listen to your comments, and hear your concerns. I fully acknowledge that there's emotions that are surrounding this project and others in Belmont at this time. And I'm positive that everyone listening in on this phone call has better things to do on a Monday night than to be listening in to this phone call. But you're here, you want to know what's going on, and I want to provide the best answers to the questions. I want to provide the best answers to the comments and concerns that we get. And my goal is to provide clarity to everyone. The meeting is hosted by Tri Point. My name's Margaret. I'm the VP of Land here. This is not a council meeting, a planning board meeting, or any city staff affiliated meeting. There will be no voting that happens tonight. No official decisions are made in this room. We'll follow the city council's schedule, which I'll get to here shortly as we begin to propose this project. And I hope that provides some clarity for some uncertainty that was swarming on the internet. Again, the goal of this meeting is for Tri Point Homes to present this project, listen to your concerns and feedback, but perhaps very different than other community meetings that you have attended or listened in on. We'd like to share the opportunity and the benefits of our multi-million-dollar roadway improvements that we're committed to providing. These road impacts are meaningful and will impact the city of Belmont in a positive way. I'd appreciate the opportunity to get through the entire presentation, provide history, and share the Tri Point Homes story, and then open it up to the public for comments and concerns. One night, let me skip over here one second. Go to slide 2, Sean. There we go. Tri Point Homes has filed a rezoning and annexation request for the 221-acre property located on South Point Road beside Reflection Point. This 221-acre property is currently within Gaston County zoning area, zoned R1. R1 today permits by right an estimated 150 or 200 residential home sites in the county. The following schedule is Tri Point's proposed timeline for the rezoning and annexation of Lakeview Farms. If we adhere to this schedule, today we're hosting our community meeting. We have a planning board meeting that would be scheduled on 4/18. 5/6 would be the official county council or the city council voting meeting. And then if we were able to proceed, you can see the timeline from the proposed project schedule, from construction document submittals, construction method approvals, beginning construction in the summer of 2025, which will detail in a little bit more depth our roadway improvements that we're suggesting. That home building would actually start in 2026 with project build out that would go on until about 2030. Tri Point Homes, we're currently members of the Belmont community. Over the last 3 years, we've actually built over 130 homes within the McLean Master Plan, and we strive to have a lasting legacy in Belmont. Tri Point Homes is in the life-changing business, dedicated to designing homes, neighborhoods, and experiences that inspire and uplift our customers, our team members, and the communities that we serve. We build homes where parents bring home newborn babies, where parents send those same kids off to college, where they downsize when those kids are truly out of the house. We build the homes that everyone on this Zoom call, everyone that's in this room with me, we build the homes that people live in. It's a personal thing for me that I can be on the forefront of delivering these homes. We identify the location in which people want to live. Everyone on this Zoom call can attest to why people choose Belmont, whether you've been here your whole life, you moved here in the last 10 years or the last 5. The small town, the quality of life, the proximity to Charlotte, the lake, the list goes on. Every time Tri Point enters a new location, our goal is to leave it better than we found it. And that's what our intent would be at Lakeview Farms. On the next slide, I highlighted the location of our subject property, Lakeview Farms. You can see it's 221 acres outlined in red. And you can actually see the McLean Master Plan community in which we've been active in for the last 3 years. We've built homes in McLean South Shore, which is the next slide. We built homes in McLean Overlake, which is that next slide. And we're currently actually under construction with townhomes called McLean Seven Oaks. This is a rendering. These homes are under construction to date, and they'll look a little bit different when they come to life, but those homes are under construction. What I want to do now on slide 8, I want to take a step back and explain what Tri Pointe Homes is requesting. As I mentioned about Tri Pointe and how we have we're requesting to annex and rezone. Zoning in general can be defined as the use of ordinances, regulations by local governments to establish general plans that regulate and limit the use of land within given areas, but also to limit building heights, structures that can be located within a specific area, specifically single-family residential or manufacturing areas, for example. Most of North Carolina's zoning ordinance try to designate consistent uses of geographical areas. For example, we'd like to put residential next to residential. Tri Pointe is proposing a conditional rezoning in the city of Belmont. I know I have said this to my children at various times, but hey, you can do this if you do that. It's a condition that we're working with the city of Belmont on for that exchange for a rezoning and annexation. What Tri Pointe Homes is proposing is that conditional annexation and rezoning, which would be required by us to adhere to. And this would include those multi-million-dollar road improvements, which would also provide certainty on the development. So this slide highlights those conditional zoning benefits. It highlights the certainty on development, the site plan, the maximum yield, 385 home site, 118, I believe, are age restricted. It is for sale residential. I know there's also been conversations swarming about build to rent or rental housing. These are for sale residential homes. We have had community engagement over the 4-year period that we've been under contract for this piece of property. And in those meetings, we have sat in community meetings with Reflection Point and Misty Waters to discuss open space and buffers as we relate to our direct neighbors. We've also had various conversations with city council members over the course of a 4-year period, very different council members and sets of council people that have worked with us over the course of that 4-year period. We, with that conditional zoning process, are able to develop higher level design standards, enhanced architecture features, increased erosion control measures. For example, Tri Pointe Homes has worked directly with the Catawba Lands Conservancy, the River Keeper, and Lake Wylie Marine Commission. And then further, that public benefit would be the significant roadway improvements in which we're proposing. On the next slide, you can see our project evolution. We started out in 2020, July of 2020 to be exact, where I entered the city council doors with 550 lots on a site plan and was told very quickly the density was too high, that it did not meet the intent and needs of the land use plan at that time. Through lots of back and forth with city planning staff, council members, today we actually are showing 385 home sites, and there has been a significant reduction in density over the course and the planning of our project. The next slide highlights our current site plan, in which you can see that total unit count is 385 home sites. Traditional single family consists of 40% of our community, ranging for 152 home sites. Those home sites are the blue and the yellow that are on the north and south side of our property. The center portion of this site, the purple and the yellow lots, are actually the age-restricted component. There's 118 of those units. And then the smaller looking squares on the site plan are actually the townhomes, and there's 115 of those on our site plan. The next slide shows some of the uses from an amenity standpoint within the community. We've got some really neat ideas for kayak launches, boat ramps, docks, and things of that nature to really give back not only to those in our community, but to the greater area of Belmont. The next couple slides, we've got our Lakeview architecture that is designed and curated by the Tri Pointe Homes team. You can see that these homes have character. They are consistent with the Belmont community. You can see on that next slide, similar homes for that ranch product that would cater to those empty nesters in the center part of the community. And then the last slide shows the townhome product. And you can see that those townhomes would cater again to singles and couples, first-time home buyers. But as we all know, price points in this area at this point in time where we are with interest rates, it's not your first-time home buyer that a lot of builders get associated with. These homes would be high-quality homes and be built and priced probably in the high 4s into the low 500s. The next slide is really where I want to introduce someone here who works for Gannett Fleming. But one of the big things that Tri Pointe Homes has done is collaborated. We have collaborated in many shapes and forms throughout the evolution of this project over the last 4 years. We've worked with the city of Belmont. We've worked with Kimberly Horn, who's actually the city's traffic consultant and traffic guide, if you will. And we worked in conjunction with NCDOT and Gannett Fleming. Gannett Fleming is an engineering firm based out of Raleigh, and we have a consultant here this evening with us. His name is Mike Holder. Mike Holder is one of the chief engineers for Gannett Fleming, in addition to one of the partners at Gannett Fleming. And Mike has longtime history in Belmont. I'm actually going to move my screen over and introduce Mike, and he's going to go through Tri Pointe Homes' proposed offsite roadway improvements that would better the town of Belmont.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hopefully we made that technical adjustment without incident there. Like Margaret said, I am Mike Holder. I do work for Gannett Fleming. I've been with Gannett Fleming, be 7 years this September, so I guess 6.5 years, plus or minus. Prior to that, I spent a 34-year career with the North Carolina Department of Transportation. I was division engineer in Division 12 in Shelby for 13 years. And during that time that my wife and I were here, we called Belmont home. We were Belmont residents. Both of my girls are proud graduates of South Point High School, and we lived in Belmead, just down the road off of South Point Road. So know Belmont well, still have a tremendous amount of friends here, and was a longtime member of First Presbyterian Church of Belmont. And I actually had the good fortune, or not good fortune, however you want to characterize it, as being the supervising congregation member for the reconstruction and rehab of the church. If you remember when that happened back in 2009 to 2012 time frame. So a lot of roots in this county. I chaired the planning board for 6 years, and then I was a member of the Parks and Rec board for a year and chaired the Parks and Rec board for a year. So just a little bit about my history in the community. My wife and my girls and I live in Raleigh now. And the reason I'm there is because my job took me there. Like Margaret said, I was chief engineer for the NCDOT for 4 years. That was a capstone of my career. I retired in September of 2017 and then joined Gannett Fleming at that point in time. Had been managing the operations in the southeastern United States since that point in time, and it headquartered out of Raleigh. So glad to meet everybody by Zoom. Well, let's talk a few minutes about the recommended offsite improvements. Margaret alluded to the fact that the lot count that was originally established, or that she first presented, has gone through an evolution. Likewise, the offsite roadway improvements has gone through an evolution, and it's due to the strong collaboration between Gannett Fleming, Kimberly Horn, and city staff relative to what this developer, what Lakeview Farms would need to do to put on the ground from an traffic infrastructure perspective to mitigate the traffic generated by our development, but also to make a significant and profound improvement to the infrastructure in the area that will benefit not only our development, but all of Belmont as we move through construction and eventual opening of these improvements. So going to the recommended improvements, let's start on R.L. Stowe, Nixon, and South Point Road. And the recommended widening of South Point Road from South Belmont Middle School, Bellwood, to the Nixon Road, R.L. Stowe intersection. We're proposing a consistent 5-lane cross section along South Point Road between Belmont Middle, Bellwood, and Nixon R.L. Stowe intersection. So we'll be adding an additional lane northbound and an additional lane southbound. We also propose to add an additional left turn lane coming westbound on RL Stowe that would turn southbound onto South Point Road. This will help in the PM peak hour tremendously, will improve the storage that's there in the existing left turn lane now, and then add storage in a new left turn lane that will be dual lefts coming off of RL Stowe in the afternoons. Next slide. We're going to continue to widen the South Point Road, adding an additional lane northbound, an additional lane southbound down to the middle school, like I just detailed. Some of the advantages and benefits of that, improvements in traffic operations, what traffic engineers call level of service improvement, which means basically that more cars can move through the intersection more efficiently or through the piece of road more efficiently. It's going to result in a decrease in travel delay times. In other words, there won't be as many backups or queues, as we call them, in the AMs and the PM peaks. And then there's potential safety, social, and environmental benefits that will be realized by this improvement in the infrastructure. Next slide. The recommended roadway widening and turn lane improvements along South Point Road and Belmont Middle School are expected to provide significant level of service improvement. It'll go from currently a level of service F to a level of service C in the PM peak hour, going northbound, significant queue reductions in the northbound direction. That averages approximately 1,200 feet plus in both the AM and PM under the current no build conditions. And it'll reduce it to 333 feet in the AM and 217 feet of queue in the PM under the build out conditions with the improvements.
Hey.
Hey,
Hey, babe.
what are you doing, baby?
Next slide. What we're proposing in improvements at the intersection of Lower Armstrong and South Point Road is a dedicated southbound right turn lane on South Point Road, installation of a wood pole traffic signal at that intersection, at that three-way intersection. And that'll create, the benefit of that is a significant queue reduction on the eastbound approach of Armstrong Road, especially in the PM peak. Right now, that traffic backs up about 2,600 foot during the AM and PM peak hours under the no build conditions, just like it is now. And with a signal installed, those queues drop to 531 foot in the AM and 414 feet in the PM under the build out conditions. So you can see with a managed approach to the intersection, that's a very significant improvement in the operations of that intersection. That's what I have relative to infrastructure and roadway improvements. So I'll turn it back over to Mark.
Thanks, Mike. And those roadway improvements that Mike just highlighted, as I alluded, would be part of that conditional rezoning and annexation process. So if Tri Point were to proceed with this project, that would be something, those roadway improvements, that we would actually complete before any home was actually constructed and sold to an end user for Tri Point to sell a home. So those infrastructure improvements would benefit the community before they would benefit anybody that would be residing in our community.
Mhm.
And I had a couple questions that came in through the chat, and I'm gonna go ahead and try to answer them or address them to the best that I can. It said reduction in home value on Ashwood Park Drive post completion of project. Second was infrastructure, schools, etc. And then number 3 was crime safety by bringing over 300 homes. I can follow up specifically on the location of Ashbrook Drive. I don't know where that one is right off the top of my head, not looking at a map, but I can try to follow up specifically on that. But I can also address that concern. Typically when new home development happens, year over year, new homes appreciate closer, especially in the Charlotte market, between 5 and 10% year over year, where existing residential homes appreciate at 2 to 3% year over year. So we don't anticipate there to be a bringing of value down of homes. In fact, new homes bring your values up. From an infrastructure in schools, this one is an emotional one and a hard one for me to address. All I can say to address this comment would be Tri Point Homes is delivering 150 plus or minus homes that would cater to a family buyer. The age-restricted component of our community would be age-restricted. Those homeowners are not allowed to have children living with them in their homes, thus they would not impact the schools. The townhome portion of our community, we see Tri Point Homes as a builder across the Charlotte market and across the country. The townhome buyer that we typically see in our communities, they are singles and couples, meaning they don't have children. They may be planning for children down the road, but their household needs change as children come into play. And the homes that we build with that attached townhome product typically do not cater to the needs of a growing family. So we see those buyers typically not choose that type of home because it doesn't fit their needs. I know that it doesn't offset the community as a whole, but really I think that the areas of focus would be those 150 homes, and the trade-off for that would be the benefit of the traffic improvements, roadway improvements in the town of Belmont. From a crime and safety, by bringing in over 300 more homes, we don't sell homes to criminals, and I don't know how to address that in a different way, but we don't anticipate more crime to be coming to the neighborhoods. In fact, it actually goes the other way when new homes are built in areas at the price points that we are targeting. It actually improves the safety of neighborhoods and communities. Looks like we have potentially 3 more messages here. I'm going to try to answer them here and address them. We've got a traffic circle question coming in 2029. And Mike can definitely answer that question. We'll switch it back over to me.
Yeah, thanks for the question, Amanda. There is a project that's on DOT's Transportation Improvement Program. Looked at it this morning before I left Raleigh just to confirm the dates on it. It does show design and right-of-way acquisition and some utility relocation in 2028 currently under their STIP, or when I say STIP, it's State Transportation Improvement Program at that particular intersection. But that project is unfunded currently. And so there is a very strong potential that even though those activities may start in 2028, it may be the early 2030s before that project is funded and is actually constructed. And in furtherance of that, anything that we're doing at this particular intersection, like I said, will greatly improve and minimize or mitigate the delays that occur there now. It will improve safety, but it also will not be throwaway. The department can use that infrastructure that we put in, especially the right turn lane that we're planning on building, where they can incorporate that into their design and use that as part of that project when that project is ready to be built.
All right, the next question here, I see somebody jumped in and helped me out on where Ashburn Park Road is or Drive, understanding that is in Reflection Point. There's questions about property values. My answer is the same. What I see in developments across the greater Charlotte market, across Belmont, across Fort Mill, anywhere, is when you have residential homes that are existing in communities that are established at higher price points, those homes tend to hold their value, even when builders come in and build homes at lower price point. All that does is elevates the premium of the community that is next door. I don't anticipate those values to go down. In fact, I think our community will drive those values up even further. One of the questions we can jump back to as they're coming in, and I'm trying to make sure we accommodate all questions here. But one of the questions was, why not a traffic circle versus a traffic light? Mike, you can jump on that one.
Sure. Doug, thanks for the question. Hope you're doing well. We did look at a traffic circle as part of the analysis, and we looked at a 1-lane roundabout because those seem to function somewhat better than 2-lane roundabouts, unless you've got lanes coming in from all 3 approaches that are 2 lanes. So the trouble or the challenge with the traffic circle there was, first of all, it takes a lot more right of way and a lot more property to build it. And we don't have the power of condemnation as a private developer, and it's in the county. So the city also does not have that condemnation power. So, and it also causes a delay in the AM peak hour if traffic is coming from like Reflection Point or this community or other communities that are down that way, that down south. it causes a delay to those vehicles trying to access a traffic circle to get into that traffic flow because you've got such a heavy left turn movement going from eastbound Lower Armstrong to northbound on South Point Road. But the main thing is the lack of right of way. And we were told in our research that we did, looking at or contacted property owners about potential right of way purchase. Aqua owns a large piece of both corners on the western side of that intersection. And Aqua's chief counsel, who I know very well, worked with him in the department for a while. He told us that without condemnation that Aqua does not sell property. So we would not have been successful in acquiring that right of way. And to the point that the traffic signal is much less expensive solution with actually a much greater benefit at this point in time.
Additional questions that are coming in. There was a question about Wilson Knoll Drive. And the buffers that we've impacted around those existing residential streets. I'm looking at Reese Wilson Road, and I'm not sure I know exactly without having the ability to look it up right now, where Wilson Knoll Drive is, but I can explain as to why we had meetings directly with Reflection Point and Misty Waters. Those are the neighborhoods that we abut directly. And so from a residential standpoint, we abut those. Unless I'm missing something, there was not that requirement from a residential buffer to residential where Wilson Knoll Drive is. But I can specifically follow up with that to understand the question a little bit better, and I will follow up directly.
The current plot that you have does not have Wilson Knoll Drive on there whatsoever. So I feel like we've been left out of the equation completely. And there's currently the drawings, if you look at them, the last house on our street, we're a street of 5 houses. If you look at the last house on our street, there's absolutely zero buffer behind our street.
Okay. Yep. Somebody on our team is pointing that out to us. Aaron, I can follow up with you directly. However, there is a buffer there from an open space, and you can see all the green on that site plan. The buffer there is probably about the same or more that we're providing for the neighbors that are at Reflection Point and Misty Waters.
Well, you need to relook at it, because if you look at the back where the electrical lines are running, there's no buffer by the electrical lines on there. It's tough to see because you don't have it on the map that you'll have. You're working off of an old map.
Yep. Okay. Yep, I see it. I see it right here. Okay. Well, let us look into that. We can definitely see what we can do to accommodate a increased buffer there if it's possible. I did not think about that. So thank you for calling that out. One of the other questions that we had received was, has an environmental impact study been completed to predict the potential negative effects on wildlife, Jaystow Lake, etc.? Tri-Point Homes has conducted our environmental studies on this, as we are required to do by the state. We have not had any negative things come out of those reports that would indicate us not being permitted to develop this site. However, one thing to note is we're preserving Jaystow Lake. You can see that we've actually placed amenities on that community's natural lake, and we plan to use it and keep it intact. So there would not be a negative effect on that. We're actually preserving it. From a wildlife aspect, addressing deer, things of that nature, in our experience in communities, those type of situations, those deers are relocated through natural effects in the community as things are constructed. One of the questions that we got from another resident was why a wooden supported traffic signal versus why something would be metal.
Excuse me, my allergies are really acting up on me. The reason that we specified a wood supported traffic signal there is because of the minimal span lengths across the 2 lanes of existing roadways.
The lawsuit would highlight.
Excuse me. All right. I know there's metal strain poles at the South Point, Red Raider Run, and the intersection with the shopping center. And the strain poles also have tremendous foundations that have to be drilled and constructed to support the the metal strain poles. And they're generally, the strain poles are generally only specified and used where there are significant spans that you have to cross, generally across a 4-lane or 5-lane section. But that's why we have specified a wooden pole versus a metal pole.
Another question that came through is resident has said that they live at this intersection, cannot even start to fathom the traffic that will come. South Point past Armstrong is a no outlet. The amount of traffic that is speeding down and the emergency vehicles is insane. Part of the reason that TriPoint is committed to proposing and committed to constructing the traffic improvements is to help alleviate some of those concerns. One question, thank you for bringing this one up to the top again. I did not get a chance to address this one. How will this affect the pump station in Morgan's Branch? This neighborhood constantly smells like sewage. More homes equals more sewage. TriPoint Homes is going to be required to contain our own sewer and water that meets the state requirements. We are going to be upsizing our lines to be able to pump into and upgrade the Mortgage Branch facility, which would hopefully help what your concerns are in the current state at Mortgage Branch. I'm going to scroll up here and see if I missed anything else. And one of the comments that I did miss, thank you for pointing this out, Kim. Age restricted will not necessarily decrease traffic. They're very active. Yes, they are. But what our studies show and what traffic consultants are able to pull is that they tend not to take the opportunity to go to the Harris Teeter at 7:30 in the morning, for example, and they tend not to do things at those peak times when traffic is at its peak with what school and your typical family traffic would be. So there is evidence out there that shows that those buyers do use the roads. They're very active. I don't disagree with that, but they tend not to use those roads at those peak times. Here's another one here. I apologize if this has been answered. Does the expansion end at Armstrong and South Point Road? Mike will answer this one.
Yes. Apologize if there was some misconception there. The expansion ends at the middle school intersection with what used to be, and I'm not sure what it's called there below it, Smith Farms, what used to be Bellwood. That's where the 2-lane expansion ends. And then the traffic signal would be installed at Lower Armstrong and South Point Road to mitigate the traffic generation there and to increase safety and throughput capacity there. Thank you.
Next comment that has come in, is there any major HOA rules that we should be aware of, or can we look up what the HOA rules will be for Lakeview Farms? TriPoint Homes will be the declarant of a community where we will be in charge of our HOA and CC&Rs in our community. We establish those throughout the build of the community. As that happens to get built out, we turn over our HOA to the residents of the community, similar to any HOA and how they operate in Reflection Point, Misty Waters. And those rules would be established within that community, and those residents would have to adhere to them. I can assure you that our HOAs are very similar to the communities that are existing in Belmont. There would be requirements on maintaining your lawn to a certain appearance. There's restrictions on architectural changes to your homes. There are, I'm just trying to think of other examples, but there are very similar rules per se within our HOA. I do not have those documents drafted yet. That is something that will be put into place as we navigate through these really the next 3 years of construction documents, roadway improvements, and vertical construction. I'm going to scroll back up to the top, guys, and just make sure I didn't miss anybody's questions. But if you have additional ones, we have 9 more minutes. But also, I'm happy to give out my contact, my information for the questions that do not get addressed in this meeting and the need for follow-ups. Any word, Mike, this is a question for you. Any word on Catawba Crossing Bridge that will help with the traffic?
Thanks, Amanda. Again, Ironically, my firm, Gannett Fleming, did the feasibility study working with Catawba, Gaston, Lincoln, MPO on the Catawba Crossing Bridge and that corridor there over to 279. Obviously, I think we all know that, and we have known for a long time, that that is the key to creating that east-west connectivity between West Mecklenburg and Eastern Gaston County to help take a lot of stress off a lot of the roadway system in Belmont. Currently, that project was submitted to the Department of Transportation for scoring in their prioritization system. Those scores have not been released yet because they're just going through that process now. It is an expensive project, and I know it's a priority with the local MPO and with the local elected officials. I hear about it a lot, and the challenge is going to be the funding from the department, and how we can crack that nut to try to get that thing built. But it's still some time off the future. It's not in the 10-year step right now, so you're looking at late 2030s, mid 2030s at the earliest before you'd have traffic realized on that facility. So that further enhances the need of the community for these improvements that Tri-Point is proposing to do on South Point Road to create that bridge between when that major facility is built and increasing capacity on South Point Road itself through this project.
And Aaron has one more question. It looks like, when will we be able to have questions addressed about daycare, schools, emergency response, etc., for the additional incoming families for this development? As I mentioned earlier, Aaron, this one is a hard question to address. The only way that I can truly address the question is to highlight the differences in our yield in the community, the different product types that we'd be addressing. We're really talking about 150 homes that would have school-age children, plus or minus, that would be impacting the Belmont schools. From a daycare facility, in my experience as a residential developer, daycare facilities follow residential developers, so they know when we're coming to certain areas. In fact, I got called upon just the other day about communities that Tri-Point Homes is working on by grocery stores that are looking to anchor in communities. Harris Teeter does this all the time, but the daycare facilities typically follow suit when they know the residential rooftops are coming. From an emergency response perspective, that comes with tax base. So the more homes in a community, the more able the local municipality, local city is able to fund and pay for that emergency response. So those two things come hand in hand as development comes. And that's the way that I can address the comment. Additionally, in 2018, the Gaston County Schools had a $250 million bond referendum. As a result, there's been many improvements in Gaston County schools. Not Gaston, but Belmont Middle School is a result of that bond referendum. And there is, if you look on Gaston County's public schools website, you can watch those minutes. You can learn about what that bond referendum did. But Southeast Gaston County, which includes Belmont, the number 3 thing on that bond referendum was a new elementary school, which is where you need the most relief today. And that has been targeted for Southeast Gaston County. That is something that you would have to address with that local school, that the local school boards, and that the education system. And that's the only way that I can truly address that question. Here's another question coming in. How about all about growing with new homes, but you have to have the supporting infrastructure to support that new growth? We are the ones stuck in traffic and late for work. And that is exactly why we're proposing the impacts on the traffic that we're suggesting. These will improve Belmont. These traffic improvements will benefit commute times for residents that are here today, whether you've been here for 5 years, 10 years, or your whole life. The reality of the situation is traffic is a concern, but if Tri-Point doesn't put forth these benefits, or any private developer does, the town of Belmont, city of Belmont will be waiting for a little while for any kind of relief. So this will be a near-term, quicker solution than it would be to wait potentially for state-funded projects or alternatives. So in a way, it seems backwards, Amanda, but what we're trying to do is to try to support that infrastructure as the growth comes. I'm going to scroll back up just to make sure. I don't think I've missed anything, and we've got just a couple more minutes. But again, TriPoint, myself, we're more than willing to answer comments, concerns, past this meeting, beyond this meeting, and we have some follow-ups that we certainly can follow up on. Okay, we've got one more. My concern is also decreased safety, increased crime by adding 300 homes behind our neighborhood. Also, reduction of values in Ashwood Park Drive. Believe I've already addressed that one to the best of my ability, so I'm going to skip down to the next one. How will we be notified for future meeting opportunities? The slide, which I can go back to on page 2, actually identified our schedule. This is our community meeting. We will be proceeding to planning board on April 18th. On May 6th is our official city council meeting, and that is a council meeting which is open to the public. So that schedule is there. There will be no more notifications except for published on the city's website. And guys, we can hang for just a couple more minutes if anybody else has any additional follow-up questions. More than happy to.
So is that meeting happening now?
Yeah. I don't know why it's not coming through my hearing aids, so.
Go to your,
Are you
go to
hearing
your
that?
little gear thing.
One last request, if everybody is comfortable, one thing that would be helpful for me is if you can provide your email and your name, that way I can follow up specifically if you have questions that were not answered, but nonetheless, you can have my contact information. I'll shoot you a note after this so that you can follow up with me directly if you have further questions, and I can pass on those questions to Mike if you have specific questions on traffic. Specific questions on the project can be fielded by the TriPoint team. But I'm going to conclude this meeting with that. Okay, here's another question. I'm happy to answer it. There was a council meeting tonight that was canceled, and that many people were confused by this meeting. Understand there was confusion. However, TriPoint Homes, as I alluded in the beginning of this conversation, this meeting is hosted by TriPoint. We did not cancel this meeting. We sent out our notifications. In no shape or form did we do it intentionally. This was always the date for our meeting. I apologize for any confusion, but our council meeting, if we are to proceed with this project, would be on May 6th. And again, if everybody can provide that email notification, if you wish to be contacted, I will do that. If not, understand completely. And I appreciate everybody's time this evening. We're going to sign off.